Way more than a hotel room, even if. So what they say about fainting, is that? Okay.
Yeah, they chat about all that. She kept saying, don't worry about my brain, my heart, my brain.
My gosh. You're a person for all seasons. I'm going to put this up just in case I notice it during the... Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Are people afraid of the weather in Cleveland? Really? But we had a small crowd last night, but a mighty crowd at services. So the weather really, yeah, you were there, right? I know Maida was there. So great to be together. Let me thank some bagels participants. Nancy Adams sponsoring the bagels today. Nancy, thank you. And Nate Jacobson for picking it up. Thank you so much. Yeah. It won't be long until I'm asking people after the applause to give a little talk. How was it? What made you decide to do it this way? And so on and so on. No, I won't do that. If you thought I did, nobody's sponsoring anything anymore. Yeah, very good. Okay, blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies us through God's commandments, enjoining upon us the obligation to immerse ourselves in words of Torah. Amen. Well, we are a Torah portion behind, but the next one is always in sight. So let's go to, I want to go back a little bit to chapter, yeah, there you go. You're on to me. Chapter 24, verse 61. This is the story of the senior Abraham's servant finding a wife for Isaac, and we are now getting into the second generation. Abraham and Sarah, now Isaac and Rebekah. Pretty soon, Jacob and Rachel and Leah. So this is the story of that nuclear family in its generations, which at the end of Genesis will become the 12 tribes reconciled and the progenitors of the people, the nation, which happens at the beginning of Exodus. But I do want to take a look here at what happens at the end. So chapter 24, verse 62, and you remember that Abraham's servant or assistant goes looking for the wife and asks along the way that to God, show me a sign. And as soon as he asks that, there comes Rebekah. And Rebekah is seen in the shadow of Abraham, right? Abraham, when he is showing hospitality to the guests in chapter 18, runs to help them one time after another and gets Sarah and the assistant to run. And here we see Rebekah not only responding to what Isaac wanted, but goes beyond that and runs to do it. So that we can see here that the author is suggesting that I don't know how to say it, let me try, that the real descendant, the next generation person after Abraham is Rebekah. That just as Abraham managed things, so it's going to be Rebekah and not Isaac who really manages the affairs of the next generation, for better or for worse. When we get to Jacob, certainly it's Jacob, but Rachel and Leah also play an active role in what happens there. So we see in verse 62, Isaac had just come back from the vicinity of Be'er Lahai Roi, for he was settled in the region of the Negev. And Isaac went out walking in the field toward evening, and looking up, he saw camels approaching. Raising her eyes, Rebekah saw Isaac. And we made something of this last week. It's speculative, but it looks like, or at least I ask myself, is the author of this trying to indicate the different perspectives of Isaac and Rebekah? He sees the camels, she sees him. Her destiny is to become his wife and to manage the affairs of the next generation. So whether or not by indirection, the author is already showing us Isaac's recessiveness and Rebekah's prominence. It's a speculation, but it's an interesting distinction here. And she alighted, middle of verse 64, from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field toward us?" And the servant said, "That's my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. Okay? So married women are veiled, and evidently there is a custom that when a woman becomes engaged, even before the marriage, she covers herself. So that this may be a sign that Rebekah now acknowledges her destiny to be the wife of Isaac. And the servant told Isaac all the things he had done. Rashi has an interesting comment on this. What is it that the servant told Isaac? Just the matter-of-fact details. I walked here 7 miles today, I slept, I walked another. Are these the pedestrian details? And Rashi says this wouldn't be worth remarking, wouldn't be worth saying that he told Isaac all that he had done. Rather, according to Rashi, he tells Isaac all the miracles that happened to him. These are the things that are worth talking about. That the discovery of Rebekah was a miracle because as soon as he asked, "Show me the way," there comes Rebekah. And we remember that in verse 21, the man meanwhile stood gazing at her, silently wondering whether the Lord had made his errand successful or not. So he relays to Isaac that this journey was really an enchanted journey and not just a journey in order to accomplish the marriage, that God was behind this plan. And you notice that the author is not featuring God's role here, but just alluding to the role, as if God here is not a prominent player in the overt activities. They can be understood in a totally secular way. But the author is at pains to point out to us at a certain point that though it looks like these are the pedestrian interactions of people with one another, that in fact God's presence hovers over these activities, as if the author is preparing us. Here I'm probably going beyond the evidence, way beyond. That God is represented throughout the Bible as playing a prominent role. Much more prominent in the beginning, near the end of the Bible. God is referred to, but not really an actor anymore. But here I think the author may be preparing us for the idea of recognizing a divine hand in the history of events, even though the author isn't saying God is actually a causal force in this action. In other words, secular activities, nevertheless, according to the Bible, ought to be seen as God-inspired, preparing us for a different kind of worldview, where we don't see God's hand, as the people did at the Red Sea, for example. So the servant, verse 6, back to 66, told Isaac all the things that he had done. Isaac then brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took Rebekah as his wife. And Rashi wonders why Sarah's name is mentioned. And the point that another commentator makes here is that she is becoming the replacement of Sarah. In other words, Sarah is the first generation, but when she comes into the tent of Sarah, it's as if she is now taking Sarah's role. And he took Rebekah as his wife. Isaac loved her and thus found comfort after his mother's death. And that's a touching moment, isn't it? He's mourning, and the arrival of his wife gives him comfort. One commentator also suggests that she is being comforted here as well, because in the story that leads up to this point, it's clear, although not crystal clear, that her father is dead. So, for example, go to verse 24, where she says, I'm the daughter of Bethuel. This doesn't mean that her father is alive. She's just referring to him. I'm the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom I bore to Nahor. There is plenty of straw, and so on and so on. Verse 28, the maiden ran and told all this to her mother's household, so that she's living in her mother's home, which suggests, but doesn't necessarily require, that her father is deceased. And if we were to continue to read this story, we see that her brother Laban is the one who does most of the speaking. If we move over to verse 50, we see here, then Laban and Bethuel answered. So Robert Alter makes an interesting claim that even though most of the story suggests that her father is dead, and therefore the point is she's in the same situation as Isaac. Isaac's mother is dead, but Rebekah's as well. So the symmetry between the two suggests that at the end, when he brought her into the tent of his mother, Sarah, he took Rebekah as wife. He loved her and thus found comfort after his mother's death, which would imply that she too is finding comfort after the death of her father. And if we went back to verse 50, Alter tells us that some scholars suggest that the addition of Bethuel here is an error, that the author is covering up the fact that Bethuel is dead, because it's the only time, let's go on from 50. The matter was decreed by the Lord, we cannot speak to you good or bad. Here is Rebekah, and so on. Verse 52, when Abraham's servants heard the word, he bowed low to the ground before the Lord. The servant brought out objects of silver and gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. Then he and the men with him ate and drank, and next morning, give me leave to go to my master. But her brother and her mother said, verse 55, let the maiden remain with us some 10 days, then you may go. And he said to them, do not delay me, and so on. And they said, verse 57, let us call the girl and ask for her reply. So that the idea here is, if it's true that much of this episode suggests that her father is dead, then the last moment of coming into the tent has a parallel. They're both getting comfort for the deceased, the death of a significant parent. And what's interesting to me about this is that even though, in a certain way, this is an epic story about the unfolding, the development of a family into a nation, so we might call this, in some sense, objective history, what happened. But from time to time, the author reaches into the heart of the protagonists and points out emotions in order to make this story not just a trajectory of events through history, but real human beings who are facing the dilemmas of life, so that not only can we identify with the epic narrative, we can also identify with the human features of this episode. In a way, when we think of the human features, we think of novels. And novels, the origin of the novel, as I understand it, happens with the rise of humanism, when we are recognizing the complexities of the inner life of individuals to give dimension, to give depth to these stories. And in a certain way, we don't enact the events of the people of the past, but we can certainly enact the emotions of the people of the past, and therefore all the more identify with the events and the reaction to events of the players. So here we certainly see Isaac's emotions, and the whole point about Rebecca is she may be sharing the same thing. Husband and wife sharing the same sorts of traumas and the comfort from the traumas, as if to form a union of your own in a way is compensation for the demise of the generation before, your parents. Jim?
But I don't see, you can't really ignore Isaac's emotional state, which lends to the fact that Rebecca is the main source of the, because I'm thinking he's close to his mother, probably more than normal, because his father tried to kill him. And I think that would scar you for life. I'm sure it would. It's vaguely implied. And remember that Rebecca is really a fairly close relative. Abraham's her uncle. Abraham sent them to his family.
Exactly.
He didn't send them to a bunch of strangers.
Right. Just as the next generation will send Jacob to the family.
Right, but what I'm suggesting,
Yes.
saying is,
Yes.
I've thought about this a long time.
Yeah.
Isaac's passivity, which we underscored many times, he's probably been emotionally traumatized for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Most people would be.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's an important point, for which, as you point out, there's a lot of evidence. I mean, the last time we saw Isaac on the top of Mount Moriah, he was lying down, which may be a symbol of passivity. And at the end of his life, he's also lying down. And he exaggerates. He says to Esau and Jacob, I'm at the point of death. In fact, he doesn't die for another 20 years. So lying down, there's only one chapter devoted to him, and essentially the episodes in chapter 26 are doublets, are repetitions of episodes we've seen, the wife-mother motif and so on. So I think your point is very well taken. I'm not sure you were heading in this direction, Jim, but just as I've tried to underline the inner life of Isaac and Rebekah, you're pointing out, too, that we see examples or instances of Isaac's inner life, the scars that he has embraced. Yeah, although what's interesting, I think, about Isaac is that even though he's a passive figure, he is the necessary link between Abraham and Jacob, which may suggest that in the succession of generations, we're bound to have different kinds of people as links. And even though Isaac is passive, he's necessary. So that oftentimes in generations, we may have heroes in a certain generation, and a next generation may have figures who are not heroic, nevertheless necessary links to the next generation where heroes might emerge again, as happened here.
Well, but also I think it makes the finding of Isaac's story way more important
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, we think of the Binding of Isaac story as an issue of faith, the test of faith. How far will one go? Kierkegaard says, only he who draws the knife gets Isaac. You have to risk everything in order to have some prophecy fulfilled. That's a big theological statement. But you're pointing out here that this is also a story of let's call it domesticity. What is happening among the people in the ways in which we interact with one another. No, I like it very much. Right. And it does illustrate the claim that I often make that these stories work on two very different levels. The epic, the large issues of the historical succession, and also the inner life of the individual. Something very large. I mean, obviously the author is writing a story that is very, very large, right? The origins and the experiences of a people from their inception and all the ways in which the story may have ground to a halt, but for a variety of reasons does not. The story of a people through history, while also digging into the inner life. It's a lovely combination of motifs. Great. Arthur, you had a point?
I was going to say what Jim did.
Okay.
I'm good.
Oh, good. Very good. All right. Taking me aback here. Okay. All right. So let's go now to chapter 25, verse 19, which is last week's Torah portion. And this gets us now on the move toward today's portion. We may arrive at it by the end of the day, probably not. This is the story of Isaac, told out as generations. So this is the story of this generation in relationship to the past generation and the future. Abraham begot Isaac, which is a bit strange. Isaac was 40 when he took Rebekah to wife, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean of Padan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. By the way, Isaac is now 40. Let's just look ahead quickly to verse 26. Then his brother emerged holding onto the heel of Esau, so they named him Jacob. Isaac, this is why I'm going here. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. So Rebekah is barren for 20 years, from when Isaac is 40 to he's 60. So the pathos of barrenness, I think, is pointed to in this. We're never sure that the next generation will emerge. And here, and it's especially portentous because if there's no next generation, the story ends. Even though you remember Abraham said, well, look, I mean, I'm 100, Sarah's 90. Maybe Ishmael is the successor. So Abraham is trying to find, in the absence of the next generation, a way for the adventure to continue. But God says, no, it's got to be from your own seed, so to speak, or from Sarah's. So, verse 21, again to 21. Isaac pleaded with the Lord. So let's go back. This is verse 19, the story of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean of Padan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah conceived. An example of answered prayers, right? Prayers are not always answered, but here is an example where it is. But the children struggled in her womb. So in other words, and this is obvious, the unfolding of this story is not going to be problem-free. We might say that the next generation is now at hand and we can rest assured the story continues. But the story is filled with problems. But the children struggled in her womb, and she said, "If so, why do I exist?" A very problematic phrase in Hebrew. Im kein lama ze anochi. If so, why is this I? What's going to happen to, who knows what this means, but I think the intent, what's happening to me? Aren't I supposed to give birth to continue the story? She went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord answered her. 2 nations are in your womb, 2 separate people issue from your body. Okay, so God's response is, this is really the story. It's a story of 2 people, twins, but it's also, maybe even more so, the story of 2 peoples who are going to have problematic interactions. 2 separate people shall issue from your body. 1 people shall be mightier than the other. The older shall serve the younger. Now, if you think of this as an oracle, and we think of the oracle in ancient Greece at Delphi, when somebody goes to the oracle at Delphi and asks what's going to happen, the answer is often ambiguous. So when Socrates' friends goes and says, "Is anybody smarter than Socrates?" And the oracle says no. To which Socrates says, well, how could this be? I'm ignorant. How could I be smarter than anybody? Either the oracle is wrong or everybody's as ignorant as I am. So the oracle is problematic, and it's resolved, you may remember, where Socrates says, the advantage I have over others is that while they think they know but don't, I know that I don't know. My special attribute is the knowledge of my ignorance. So the oracle's response is ambiguous, and it's resolved in that way, in a paradoxical way. But this sets Socrates on the course of his life, to try from a position of ignorance to learn something. So he goes to generals, what is courage? And he goes to the priests, what is piety, and so on. And because he doesn't know anything, he's asking for information, but he discovers that though they think they know and should know, they don't. Another famous one is during the Persian Wars at the Battle of Salamis, where the general Themistocles goes and asks the oracle, "What should we do?" And her answer is, "The wooden walls will save Athens." You remember this? The wooden walls. The first interpretation is this must be the walls that are built around the Acropolis. Let's build walls, and they're defeated. And Themistocles says, no, these are the sideboards of the ships, and if we build a fleet, we'll be able to defeat the Persians. So here, when it says the older shall serve the younger, the Hebrew can be read in 2 ways. Rav Ya'avod Sa'ir, the older shall serve the younger, or the older shall the younger serve. Both are possible interpretations, because it's not clear to whom the verb Ya'avod refers. So that this also, the reason I bring in the oracle at Delphi is that the oracle, typically, at least in that situation, is going to be systematically ambiguous. And we have to figure out what it means. If this oracle is also ambiguous, we have a connection between the idea of the oracle here and in the ancient world, which may suggest that there is something about oracles. You're going for an answer, but the answer is never, I don't know that never is never clear. It's always a challenge to those who are seeking an unambiguous answer. So think about it, though. The oracle suggests that either Jacob will serve Esau or the other way around. What it suggests is the answer to that question will only emerge in the doing. So how are they going to take control of their destiny in order to show what the oracle meant? Jacob is the victor, which in retrospect suggests, yes, this is one of the outcomes of the oracle. The oracle's not saying, not predicting what a future event will be like, but suggesting that this has got to be the result of a struggle. When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first one emerged red like a hairy mantle, Edom, Admoni, and Esau is also Edom, the empire of Edom, like a hairy mantle, Seir, hairy, which is also one of the names of Esau's descendants. So in other words, these are also allusions to the idea that this story is a miniature of a larger story between these two peoples. Then his brother emerged, holding on to the heel of Esau, so they named him Yaakov. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors. But Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. This leads the rabbis to suggest or to insist that remember? He was studying Torah. I mean, what's he doing in the camp? I mean, what else would you do if you've got a lot of time on your hands and you're at home? I mean, there's no TV yet. So this is a typical move of the rabbis to retroject their own values onto the past. In other words, the text becomes a usable text to suggest that their values are rooted in the depths of antiquity. They're not just deciding, hey, what are we going to do with our time? Let's study Torah. No, we're carrying on what the earliest ancestors did. Vivian?
Rabbi Lelyveld used to say it's a pretext.
Yeah, it's a pretext. Yeah, so that's very good. I love it. Isaac, verse 28, favored Esau because he had a taste for game. But Rebekah favored Jacob. Okay. Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open and famished. And Esau said to Jacob, give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I'm famished. That's why he was named Edom. Jacob said, sell me first your birthright. Okay? So here's what I want to suggest. That we found back in the Abraham story, already before the first chapter was over, that Abraham engaged in suspicious, problematic activities. He says to Sarah, say you're my sister so that I may be saved. And we had a long discussion about this. Was this ethically important? Did Abraham do the wrong thing? At least it was ambiguous. One could argue it both ways. Here we have a parallel situation structurally. Here is the next major patriarch. Abraham, Isaac, recessive, Jacob. And Jacob, early in the Jacob stories, also engages, do you agree with me, in an ethically problematic situation. So one could argue, remember we had this discussion, does Abraham, what's the judgment on Abraham? And I think there are at least two. He did the morally wrong thing, problematic. Or he recognized that something crucial was at stake, and that is survival. And when survival is the issue, moral problems become less important than surviving. And so he did the right thing there because his survival was at stake. Here, Jacob may very well entertain the same kind of thought. Could Esau really be the one to carry on the covenant with God? All he's really interested in is his belly. He's interested in material well-being, in material satisfaction. If you're going to promote the durability of the covenant, you have to have higher values than that. Esau's the wrong person. So it seems to me that the author, at least in these first two episodes, one involving Patriarch 1, one involving Patriarch 3, a morally ambiguous situation, which to me is very courageous of the author, who doesn't unnecessarily glorify the ancestors. These aren't becoming mythic figures. They are figures who are involved in the warp and the woof, the complexities of daily life. So the author does not shy away from moral ambiguity in the greatest of the heroes, which I find really amazing if you agree with that. Let's finish the story and then we can talk about it. So once, I'm now in verse 29, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open, famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I'm famished," which is why he was named Edom. Jacob said, seeing the chance, I add here, seeing the opportunity, sell me your birthright. And Esau said, "I'm at the point of death," which we may interpret as an exaggeration. I'm so famished, I'm about to die. So what is the use of my birthright to me? So Esau does not see the value of the birthright, namely having the leadership of the family through the episodes of life into the next generation. But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. I love the matter-of-factness of this statement, which represents Esau's point of view, not Jacob's point of view. From Jacob's point of view, this is monumental. This is a momentous moment. The author, so he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob, as if, trading in some baseball cards for another card here. So that's Esau's view. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and I love the Hebrew here of this sentence. And he ate and drank and rose and went away. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright. We have a succession of 5 verbs, one after another. So I'll just read the Hebrew. Vayochal, vayesht, vayakam, vayelech, vayivez. And he ate and he drank and he got up and he went and he scorned. Just one after another, as if, look, this is what I need to do in order to get some food, and so I'm just matter-of-factly going to engage in relinquishing this patrimony. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright. David?
So this is where we have a proof text of why it was good that it was Jacob and not Esau, because Jacob has to carry on the tradition that's eventually going to be our tradition, and Esau eats and drinks and gets up and leaves, and he doesn't say Birkat Hamazon. own.
Very good, very good. Yeah, among other things he doesn't do. He doesn't say the bear got on his own. I love it, I love it. Yeah, and therefore, that's a nice comment. Fun. What's that? What's that?
Therefore, he was the wrong guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Did Abraham wear a yarmulke? Of course he wore a yarmulke. It said that Abraham went out. Does a person go outside without wearing a yarmulke? Yeah, Ellen.
When, go back to when the babies come out, and it says, and so they named him Jacob because he was holding the heel. What does Jacob mean?
Yaakov is from heel,
Oh, okay.
right? There is a passage later in Jeremiah. Let's just see if I can find it fast. Oh, I turned right to it. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. Most devious is the heart in the Hebrew. Akov, from heel to devious, halev mikol, than anything else. So it has that connotation too, at least later on, for the prophet, of having some sense of deviousness. Yes?
So you talked about like the moral ambiguity of this story and the good aspect of Esau not being fit to lead, so it's ultimately better for Jacob to take on that mantle. But I guess when I think about this, I first get the sense of him being motivated by like greed or a hunger for power. And it's like you just said, like if you look at the source of his name, he's holding on to the heel of Esau, which can suggest like some timidity or that he's following him, but I also get the sense of envy.
So you're being critical of Jacob here. Yes, and that's the question. That's the question. I mean, that's why I raised the story of Abraham telling Sarah, lie about who you are. It's at least morally ambiguous, if not downright problematic. But why is it that the author is, again, in this story, replicating this ambiguity? I'm suggesting that the author has something in mind here. Moral dilemmas are always going to happen. It's not easy to decide which is the right approach, but both have survival at stake. And what was that comment back in the communist frenzy? Is this Bertrand Russell? Better read than dead. Make some concession because otherwise you're dead. And is that morally allowable? Is life and death more important as an issue than lying or telling the truth? Maya?
But on the other hand, Esau is a man of impulse. He has to act on immediately.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing for the reader. You have to be planning ahead.
So,
I think in a way it's a justification that he did the right thing.
so you are defending, you might presume that Jacob at this moment understands just what you've said, and he sees his brother as just being exaggerating and being concerned with something physical. And Jacob decides, I have to do this because the covenant is at stake. For you, Jacob did the right thing. More or less. Explain it away. Okay. Does anybody think that Jacob is unequivocally right? Or is it finally just a moral dilemma? Arthur?
I love this story. It really makes me tingle every time I read it. And I think there's something about the twins. Because I think about it, in each of these generations of the three founding families, there's an accepted champion and a rejected heir. So Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, and then
Joseph.
and his brothers. But only Jacob and Esau are twins. So the opposition here, I think, is intensified. It's the same issue as Isaac and Ishmael, but it's intensified because they're twins. And I think grabbing the heel is a foreshadowing of wrestling. He's wrestling, and Rebecca says, they're contending, they're struggling in my womb.
Right.
So they're wrestling, and who's Jacob really wrestling with? They say it's this man, it's an angel, but he's doing it the night before he sees
That's
twins.
another episode.
His twins.
Yeah.
And their joining together is not an easy meeting.
Who's?
Esau comes with an army, and Jacob's alone.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that's the wrestling. It's this intensity of wrestling for purpose, meaning, something beyond yourself, something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Struggling for meaning, I guess, is what I'm looking for. But there's something about Jacob and Esau where it goes through the roof, the intensity.
Yeah.
And Rebecca is the agent of creating the intensity. It's her pregnancy. Isaac and Ishmael have different mothers, and Jacob's brothers have different mothers, most of them. Rebecca's the agent of the intensity. She carries the intensity, and she nurtures the intensity after they're born even.
But initially, she's the passive agent.
Yeah.
But then she takes sides. She hasn't taken sides yet, has she? Has she?
Right from the beginning.
Where does it say so? Okay.
I never understood this.
Rebecca favored Jacob. Yeah.
I never understood this verse. The struggle. Who am I? I think she makes a choice. I will accept the intensity of the struggle.
Who's this now?
Rebecca.
Okay.
Rebecca could miscarry.
Okay.
Or she could die.
Okay.
She could be overwhelmed and give up the ghost. I understand that moment as her saying, "This is unbearable, but I will bear it."
Okay.
Literally, I will bear it.
And what do you make of that? What's the inference?
I think she's extraordinarily powerful and allows the story to reach this, as I say, extraordinary intensity. Jacob and Esau's story is so intense. They're twins. They're evenly matched in birthright. And by a whisker, one comes out.
They're not evenly matched in birthright, though.
But,
One came out first,
by a minute.
but that's what birthright's all about.
But
Well.
you can't get closer in the challenge than a minute.
Well, but
The older brother's 10 years older, has it all over the younger.
But I think Candy has a good point here. Structurally, Esau is unequivocally the older, and therefore it's up to Jacob to find a way. Yeah.
Does Esau express remorse for having given this up at all? Because I think things, and I think Esau knows this, that they happened the way they were supposed to happen. And I think Esau gave it very little thought, and I think it may have been deceptive and conniving on the part of Jacob and Rachel. But it was important to them, and it wasn't important to Esau. And the proof of that is he was willing to let things in the world emerge and happen in a natural kind of way. And he was not interested in doing the things that needed to be done or that Jacob was good at. And so it was maybe a good thing that he left when he left. And he realized all of that after he was willing to come together in peace and make up with his brother.
Later.
So it was less contentious than the story ambiguously expressed.
Less contentious than here.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was a more natural occurrence.
Yeah.
And it was some kind of a happy ending.
It's an interesting point. I mean, when finally Isaac blesses Jacob, because Jacob masquerades as Esau and Isaac gives him the blessing. And then when Esau comes in, doesn't know that this scene has happened, and says, and Isaac said, I already blessed you. Wait a minute now. And then Esau says, don't you have a blessing for me? So Esau, he may not be remorseful, but he rues, or he sees that the outcome. And you remember then Rebekah decides to send Jacob away so that Esau doesn't murder her for him. So that Rebekah feels that Esau But later on, after the 20 years in exile, when Jacob comes back down again, and he knows that Esau with 400 men is coming toward him, divides the camp because he infers that Esau is still ticked off. But it turns out that Esau isn't. So your point here about Esau accepting this verdict, I think, is somewhat problematic, but we do see instances where he seems to have reconciled himself to this outcome. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, nature in this early story works in two ways: birth order and hunger. So the nature has the outcome is not just a matter of choice, it's also a matter of the nature of things. Physical craving can be a very strong force in how people act, as well as birth order determines the whole issue of primogeniture. Who is it that inherits the mantle and the wealth of the family is always a struggle in biblical days, especially. Vivian?
So let me argue on Esau's.
Good.
I'm imagining this scene. First of all, I work at the food bank a lot. I see a lot of hungry people. And I was just reading this morning in the New York Times about hunger and how awful it is for people and how obsessed they are with food when they don't have it.
Yeah.
Jacob's been sitting in the tent. Whose food is it that he's stirring in this pot? He didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't grow it. He didn't breed it. Somebody else handed it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother comes in and he sees a way to take advantage of this misery that his brother is in.
And so Jacob is a problematic character here for you.
Very much.
Yeah. And you're not mollified, or you don't soften your verdict over and against the claim that Jacob knows that if Esau carries the mantle of the family, the covenant is doomed.
I don't think Jacob knows anything. I think he just is jealous. He's just jealous. I don't think he sees
The larger
the
picture.
larger picture, at least not at this point. He's a kid.
The author sees it, but Jacob doesn't.
That's what Jacob says.
It's an interesting point.
I
So,
think that Esau, when he makes this bargain, he's forced into it, and he is man enough to accept it. He says, okay, I did this, so be it.
yeah.
There's nothing I can do.
Until he sees the consequences, that Jacob gets the blessing and
then
he doesn't.
cries.
Then he
So
cries.
he doesn't act on it.
That's a very good point. I mean, oftentimes scholars think that this is a reading back, or is that the way to say it? I mean, Edom and Yaakov, Jacob and Esau, are Judaism and Rome, and then Judaism and Christianity. So this can be read as a kind of parable of the, and in this sense, Jacob is the more important in that reading.
To us.
To us, for sure. Yeah, to us. Okay, so Vivian is making the claim that if one were to divide this into right and wrong, that Jacob is wrong and Esau is right. Yeah,
At this point.
yeah,
Right here.
right here.
That this divergence of paths.
But as Candy says, I mean, Candy just elaborates a bit on the point that you've made in reverse order, that Esau not only accepts it here, but he basically accepts it later as well. Their last meeting, Esau is, and it says in that story when they come together that Esau threw his arms around and kissed Jacob's neck, which the rabbis, there are places in the Bible where the rabbis had placed dots over letters. And the dots over letters might suggest, we don't exactly agree with the plain reading of this. or take note. And there are dots over the word kiss, which is very similar in Hebrew to bite. So he kisses. The plain reading is, he really is still reconciled here. And his only intention is to throw his arms around his brother and say, I love you. Whereas the rabbis insist that he bites Jacob's neck and therefore continues to be the bad guy in their reading of the story. And it requires these dots in order to do it. Yes?
I think there is a sort of straight parallel to Cain and Abel's story, because brother who does agriculture, God doesn't accept agriculture. And absolutely agree with the point. Now Esau one foot from the field. And he is a hunter, brother.
He's a what? He's a what?
Hunter.
Esau.
He's a hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah.
Hunter, again. One hunter, one who is agriculture.
Mhm.
And same there, but now agricultural food. So the point
Yeah.
there. Yes, there later we have story between brothers again, Joseph and brothers, but there are two like symmetrical points. Time has changed, and person who farmers his life, farmers family.
Yeah, right. Farmer versus, Cain is a farmer and Abel is a shepherd. And it's a kind of an anti-sedentary, which leads to towns, which leads to the problem of towns, like Sodom. So it becomes I think this is your point, isn't it? They become types. They represent different ways of life.
This is actually tourist.
Yeah, right.
Different ways of life, but first
Yeah,
hunter was
Yeah.
preferred. Now it's agriculture.
yeah. So your point, I think it's a good point too, that these can be understood as tales of the interaction of individuals and acting in ways that we recognize. We have moral dilemmas, we decide them and so on. So this is a novel. But you're also pointing out that it not only has national implications, Edom is Rome and Esau is Rome and Jacob is, and also types of life. There is an anti-urban polemic in the book of Genesis especially, that settling down creates values that obscure values that put people in more. A city represents a way of taking control of our lives, whereas being a nomad, you're in a way leading a more natural but vulnerable life, and vulnerable means dependent not just on yourself, how you build roads and skyscrapers, but on God. Yes?
Actually, yes and a little bit no. We know from archaeology that Neolithic revolution, when agriculture appeared, when actual clothes and all civilization, today's civilization appeared, was 15,000 years ago.
Okay.
And story Cain Abel is quite a reflection of this two ways, as we said, of life. So hunting and agriculture.
Yeah, settled and wandering.
And then we have return on another stage of developing civilization with again two brothers, again two ways of life, but different outcome.
Yeah.
This, I think, is a larger point of view.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that in a way we could think of it in terms of concentric circles of meaning and significance. There is the interaction on the human scale, there's the national, and there are the ways of life circles. So, yeah, right. In a certain way, that might suggest another way of seeing Scripture, not just as a scripture, but also as a classic that really introduces layers of meaning. You had a, yes?
I like the way the author kind of set up this flip-flop between the brothers. Jacob is studying Torah or not, I don't know. And Esau is the hunter, the strength.
Yeah,
He's the strength, but he's the one who pulled
yeah.
Esau out of the womb, or Jacob out of the womb with his strength.
Say that again now, that's Esau, say that again?
Well, Esau came out first,
Yep,
and Jacob was holding onto his heel.
right,
So Esau was in the position of strength,
yes,
pulling him out as they were being born. But then flip-flop comes when the hunter becomes the passive, and the passive becomes the aggressive. In terms of when he's telling him, I want your birthright, swear to me. He's very strong in that,
yeah,
and the hunter now becomes the weakened one.
yes. What do you make of, do you make something of this reversal?
I don't know what I make of it, I just like the way that the author set this up.
Yeah, huh, I like that,
But there's so many different ways, whether it's weak or strong,
yeah.
or famine, not famine, all these different themes that are presented.
You're pointing to issues of structure in a way, in a narrative, how the structure can be turned upside down. I want to be sure. Yeah, Lynn.
Off of that a little bit, so much of last week's Torah and this one, discussing these brothers. I think Shakespeare must have known this story when he wrote Hamlet, because I feel like Hamlet is both twins.
Oh, that's
There's
interesting.
just so many things everybody has said that is reminding me of that.
Of it.
Play, and then one character who's both action and thought all the time.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a new movie out, Hamnet,
Yes,
who was evidently their son,
yes.
Shakespeare's son. And Hamlet and Hamnet were interchangeable, I guess, in those days. And Joyce in Ulysses makes a big deal out of Hamnet. I can't remember exactly what. Yeah, Jim.
Well, let's, as long as we're projecting all these things that don't exist.
Says you.
Yeah, well, makes good for the day. But anyway, let's pretend this scene of the student happened, and we go further down the road, and Esau says, you know what, I can't do this. My brother's not a bad guy. Here, you do it. To Candy's point, I could see how this situation is gonna end up anyway, even though it may be further down the road.
Namely, what?
We're assuming that this birthright is the end-all, be-all
Yeah.
to everybody. And maybe it was. But somewhere down the line, if the Stu situation wouldn't have happened, Esau might have said, I don't want to lead all these people and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
My brother's good at it. Here, do it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's insight on Esau's part,
Yeah.
because he recognizes he's not the guy.
I don't think he knows or he's aware of it. I think it's not insight as much as it's human nature.
To what?
It's the way he sees himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And he sees himself not being concerned. I don't think he's even thought about the birthright, whereas Jacob spent hours thinking about it.
Yes,
And he's not concerned with political stuff like that. He's concerned with the land and with growing things and with more simple things.
Yeah.
He understands himself.
well, I think it seems to me you're right about how the story unfolds, that Esau doesn't seem to be bearing a resentment. Rebekah and Isaac send Jacob away for fear of Esau's revenge. We don't see that he's revengeful. We'd have to see whether no. Yeah, but don't you think that even though you're making Esau, I'm not saying fabricating, you're reading Esau as really a guy who has good self-insight, and he's not a kind of person who is going to carry a grudge. On the other hand, don't you think it's a mark against him that he's willing to give up a certain amount of authority in the family? I was going to say power. But the firstborn does have some rights to lead the family, maybe to be the one, certainly later, to deal with the inheritance of the family. The firstborn gets a double portion according to the Bible itself. So isn't Esau overly naive in not seeing that he's giving up some significant advantages just on a very personal, familial level? Don't you think? I mean, that shows he's not the right guy, that's for sure. But if I'm Esau, I don't give it all up that
I
quickly.
think it's amazing that in such a small space, the Bible the author can create such an intricate person. But I think because of the way people are, the way people develop, some of them want control, some of them don't.
Yeah,
And I think some of that's built in.
good.
And I think Jacob is one of those people that wants it, that thinks about it, and it's a part of his soul. And that Esau is much more easygoing, much more interested in nature, and doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
Not that he's willing to give it up, which it turns out he was, but that he just doesn't care about it that much. I don't think he thought about all those things, double portions and down the line. I think he was naive.
Yeah.
Probably, but I don't think that he ever was unhappy with the decision he made. He just felt some sadness on a personal level when he didn't get the blessing.
So one of the cases that you're making, and not only you, is this idea that the Bible is not only scripture with normative value for a community, it's also literature. I mean, we have in the modern world this approach to the Bible, that the Bible is great literature, Robert Alter preeminently. And one of the hallmarks of great literature is the development of credible, complex characters and an intricate plot. And you're pointing to both, that already in a very, very narrow way, we see complex character at work. You see a foreshadowing here of Esau's character, Jacob's as well. I mean, Jacob is a guy who's struggling and succeeds, that wrestling with the angel, you have struggled with man and with God and have prevailed. So Jacob is a guy who's constantly struggling, getting himself into deep trouble, right? I mean, he's given the wrong person as a wife. He works another 7 years. He's with Laban for 20 years, for crying out loud, before he can extricate himself from this. Whereas Esau is a different kind of character. Neither is a plastic, one-dimensional individual, and that's the point that you're making. It's an interesting point here. And it's a credit to the author that in a very few words, this is something you also said, the author conveys a tremendous amount. Inferences seem plausible. Sometimes our inferences seem less plausible. We don't know about plausibility until we try it out. That's the experimenting with an interpretation is a great thing to do. Arthur.
So I come back as a father of twins to the power of the twin thing here, because you don't see Isaac and Ishmael talking to each other about who's going to be the next heir.
Yeah.
And you don't see Joseph and his brothers actually, well, Joseph claims the heirship, but they don't sit down at a table
They don't talk,
and negotiate the heir. These two are so even, they're talking, I mean, that's these both
Yeah,
Which is why we flip back and forth. That's why it flips so easily.
yeah,
Because it's so.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Could I make a literary point here? That in the author dealing with the theme of twins, which happens throughout, or the struggle, finds different ways to describe the dilemma.
Yeah.
Joseph and his brothers takes a long, long time to work itself out. Here it's worked out immediately, but with remainder, there's something that happens. John?
Well, I was looking at this as a influence of the parents, and maybe the difference in the parents' influence on the children, and where Isaac assumes as the male in the family,
Mhm.
being the person to push the story forward, although Rebecca pushes back, and because Jacob spends so much time with his mother, she's the major influence in both his education and the ideas that she has that are embedded into his character.
Yeah. Right. Well, we know that Isaac is also a person who focuses on his belly. I mean, that's the impetus for the next story. So Isaac and Esau have similar interests. I mean, let's suppose that Isaac plays tennis. Who does he take out to play, Isaac or Esau or Jacob? He takes Esau out. Esau's a big, strong guy. Jacob's bringing the Torah to the tennis court. Wait till I finish reading this chapter, Dad, and then we'll play. No, I think you make a good point. I think in that regard, Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve. Eve gloats. I have created a man along with God, is the plain reading of this. She's gloating at her power, and it's Cain who opens the womb. And therefore, the firstborn is favored by somebody who thinks of herself as, in a way, godlike, giving birth. So it may very well be Eve's inferred, it's all inference, favoritism of Cain that leads to the struggle between the brothers. I think you've got a good point, and I wonder whether there's more examples of this. I mean, Joseph and Benjamin are Rachel's children. I'm not sure she's the favored wife, and therefore they may be the favored children, and that may be a kind of impact as well. Yeah, and that's the psychology of family life you're pointing to, another dimension of this story. Okay, let's go on. Chad.
So, Esau may have been naive, as you said.
Yeah.
But Jacob was a deceiver.
He's a deceiver.
Yeah, really. And
For a purpose.
the characteristics of the patriarch.
It's what?
When you think of the characteristics of the patriarch,
Yes.
what does Jacob do? Like, silent when Dinah's raped. He shows favoritism to one of his sons, so much so that the brothers want to kill him.
Yeah.
So he's hardly a good moral character. In the 20 years since the two have met, when they actually meet again, who's the one that shows the greatest moral courage?
Who's this now? Who? Esau?
Esau and Jacob when they meet. I mean, Esau runs to him, embraces him, kisses him, weeps, gives forgiveness with no preconditions, no terms. He's the one that's been wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and then, the sages make him a villain and the Edomites are a villain
Yeah, yeah,
forever.
yeah, no
And
question
so
about it.
I agree with Vivian, I mean, you can argue very vociferously that,
It's interesting because I could add to your point that the author somehow seems committed to Jacob's supremacy. But the narrative, as you point out in some detail, doesn't really reflect the priority of Jacob as the rabbis, also the interpreters, interpret Esau as the bad guy against the evidence of the narrative. There is that one story. I'm not trying to save Jacob here, but there is this one. I do feel a little pressure, frankly, to save Jacob. Just because, so what's the rationale for Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov? Doesn't say Elohei Esav. So was this all political? There was the Jacob, when the rabbis sat down to write the Amidah, and the first prayer of the Amidah, the Avot V'Imahot, you think they had a convention about how to put this together. And now now the first order of business, folks, is to decide among the patriarchs and the matriarchs, let's just say at the beginning, the patriarchs, who gets to be mentioned in that order. And the Jacob caucus won that argument. Was it just a power play, or is it deserved? I mean, one way in which we might say it's deserved is that Jacob gets 1/2 of the book of Genesis. We introduce him here in chapter 25. There are 50 chapters in the Bible, and Jacob is ubiquitous, either in acting or in memory, for the whole second half. Guess what Jacob's name becomes? Yisrael. So that, and at least there are, I think this is an interesting point, there are formal elements of the story which favor Jacob. That he's Israel, that he's got most of the literature. But the story itself doesn't seem to support his being worthy of that. But it raises a puzzle, doesn't it? Is Jacob's supremacy in the history of the use of the Bible, let's say, totally gratuitous? Or is there some rationale for it? I mean, the one story that really favors Jacob is the wrestling with the angel, right? He prevails against this night figure, and after the story is over, it says that Jacob arose the next day limping on his thigh. So that Jacob is the survivor against challenges, even from a divine being, and gets to exist to the next day. Harold Bloom says this is the biblical sublime. This is a good illustration of the sublime, that Jacob wrestles with an angel to a draw, and he makes it to the next day wounded. Jacob as the wounded survivor, the very picture of Jacob's descendants, wounded survivor. So in this sense, Jacob is the paradigm, but not so much for, as you point out, I mean, the evidence you bring is incontestable. Look at all the ways in which Jacob is a cad here. So, yeah, it's an issue, isn't it?
So what happens to the nation of Esau?
Esau gets, it also says here at the end, that he's blessed by Isaac, who says that you will be the father of a great nation too. Same with Ishmael.
He's got 400 men with him.
Okay? Later in the story. I'm sorry?
Are they
Well, we don't know, do we? I mean, they certainly are not descendant. They're biological descendants of Abraham, but they're not historical. The line of development doesn't go through Esau. Esau is a diversion in terms of the main story,
Right.
but also comes from Abraham. I will make of you a great nation. You know, Ishmael, Esau. In other words, that promise comes forward not only in the direct line. Chad?
I was going to say, the Edomites, we know that during the Hasmonean Empire are not Jewish, and they're actually forced to convert under the
What-
Hasmoneans. We know that.
The Hasmoneans?
Herod is an Idumean.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's interesting, right?
But he's never felt to be legitimate by
Herod himself. Right. That's a good point. So we see down the road more illustrations, or the arrival, the Esau descendants continue to play a role, but a marginalized one. Well, yeah, David.
What I like about the story is the lesson for us that we are not blessed because we came from wonderful ancestors. But we're blessed because we came from people who struggled to do the right thing and sometimes did. We really, when we're at our best, we are the children of Israel. When we're not so good, we're the children of Jacob.
No.
I mean, it represents two sides of the same thing. People are not perfect, and we're not asked to be perfect, but we're asked to struggle to be the best we can be.
So Jacob is a character of moral complexity, if not opprobrium. Whereas Israel is not so much a character in the story, but a moment of beginning. So in order to be a part of this enterprise, we care about morality the way in which Jacob seems not to have, at least not consistently. But Jacob is a character of morality. Israel is a character of destiny. So, Soloveitchik has a wonderful book. The Voice of My Beloved Knocks. And he makes a distinction between fate and destiny. Fate is what happens to us. We are, in terms of fate, we are objects acted upon. Destiny, we're no longer objects, we're subjects. So in terms of Soloveitchik's typology, we're fated to be Israel. We're destined to reckon with Jacob. Something like that. Israel is our destiny. It's not a matter of morality. It's a matter of commitment to an enterprise, period. Whereas Jacob raises the moral question for us. Gee. Could that be right? There's Israel. You have struggled with man and with God and have prevailed. That's what the angel says to Jacob. You've prevailed. You struggled. I'm sorry?
That's what we're called out to do.
That's Israel. Struggle. But we can't just rest comfortable with, we're strugglers, but we're surviving. The fact that we've survived the struggle in our day doesn't mean everything. What also means something is What's the Jacob part of us? I like it. Yike. I love that. That's so, Vivian, I think you had a comment? Okay. All right, let's,
So, I think one of the things we haven't talked about is what a big leader Esau became.
yeah,
And his descendants actually do, I believe, think of themselves as descendants of Abraham. Certainly the Muslims
yeah.
trace their,
The Muslims is Ishmael, I think, not Esau. Esau is Rome, at least according to that typology. Yeah, yeah, right. No, nice, nice. How we doing here? Wow. So, all right, now we're 2 Torah portions behind. Should we just skip ahead? Let's go to Leviticus, and then we can relax for many weeks.
We did skip ahead. We got the wrestling with the angel.
We did a little bit, just tangentially. That's a good point. If we went to Leviticus, we have 12 weeks to catch up. All right. Oh, I love, Jacob becomes here a huge figure, for better or for worse. Well, that's right, for better or for worse, right, or both. Of all the individuals who could have been called Israel, it's Jacob. That, in a way, is an extension of your point here. It's just Jacob who becomes Israel, and therefore becomes a dual figure. Yeah, if Judah became Israel, yeah, Samson. Strong. The javelin. Yes.
I don't know if it's intentional, but the interesting line in that paragraph is Jacob is cooking stew. He could have been doing something else. The word stew kind of resonates with all the problems and fighting, infighting that would happen. I don't know if that word was used.
Oh, you're saying the stew is made up of parts which may not sit well together as a metaphor for, yeah,
I mean, he could have been doing something else besides cooking.
a bologna sandwich.
Could have had a fire with the red stuff on it.
Yeah, no, very, 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 very good. Ellen,
Esau is also supposed to become a great nation. What nation did he become?
well, according to the rabbis, I'm not sure. Well, Chad makes the point here that Herod was an Idumean and descendants of Esau, the Edomites, who was read out of the line here. Yeah. All right. So,
We pray at Edomian wall. The western wall was built by Herod.
well, that's true. Restored in any event. I'm feeling the need to stop. Oh, come on. Let's, all right, we'll continue next week. This has been very provocative. I mean, Jacob is a huge, and as Chad, we all point out, problematic guy, but may represent the duality of a people. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, thank you, my gosh. Look what we came up with today. And I never repeated any question.
So why does God want us to struggle? And that's what it seems like. You get a thing where, trying to figure out who sat by the road, and Isaac couldn't see her, and he had relations with her, which she was.
Don't. Isaac?
Yeah.
Sat by the road. Oh, this is maybe in the book of Judges? And
Maybe that's what, but it was to continue. It seems like a struggle to always just continue. And even today, a struggle. So I don't know why God wants that. See, I don't even know if he does, but it seems like he does.
Well, he's represented as wanting it because he's the sponsor of the development of his family. We're struggling one time after another. So one could infer that this is the development of God's plan. You could certainly think of literary reasons for the struggle. It makes the story interesting.
Yeah.
Humanistic reasons, we human beings do struggle. Maybe the authors who are, and the editors who are doing this work during the Roman period, Babylonian period beginning, but the completion of it, are thinking about the story they know, and they can't. The story they know is the story of struggle, which nevertheless has led to the future. So maybe they're retrojecting their sense that.
But even beyond that, though, it just seems though like, we have the Holocaust, and things seem to be better, now they seem to be worse in terms of anti-Semitism. I thought Israel was winning a war, but the enemy is, is gathering up again, and, we don't know, Iran is, gathering, working on their nuclear stuff. It just seems like, why, even beyond the authors, okay, that you're talking about, it just seems like it's a continual thing. It also actually just makes me wonder about the authors, okay? Because I know you say the authors, some people say God, okay? But but maybe God had more insight than the authors, because this is something that's way beyond those authors. It's still happening again and again. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. So if God wants the story to be real and eternal, he's going to have to reckon with how history happens. And it happens through struggle. Maybe God recognizes or could recognize that I'm starting a people, the story of a people, and I want them to be eternal. So what is it that animates people down through history? I mean, if they're just sitting in some corner.
It seems like, I don't know if the right word is oxymoron or
why would God make struggle? And yet God wants
why
to
would struggle make you continue to eternity?
Well, because there's certainly exemplars in the story. There are people of faith. There's the deliverance of the law.
That was my father, yes.
So it doesn't just work on a horizontal level, it works vertically as well. Vertically in the sense that there are these transcendent values and so on to which we're striving to bring them into our lives. So it's a real story. I mean, in the sense that the Iliad, the Odyssey, and so on are stories we continue to read because they're about us. This one is about us in a different way. I mean, the Iliad and the Odyssey are essentially linear, the unfolding of events and character. This is linear but also vertical, reaching for something absolute. And that reaching is in a way consolation for the struggle or up to something really eternal.
And I'm almost wondering too, if it's sort of like one of these things of evolution, that in order for you to be strong, you have to struggle. And unfortunately, that's how it is, but that's what makes people strong.
Or defeats them. Or defeats them. You can lose the battles.
Right, but I mean, maybe with the Jews, repeated this, like, maybe that's like they're evolving stronger and stronger because they've had such a track record of, getting out of these situations throughout history. I don't know,
Well, you think of the Crusaders, especially the Jews, when the Crusaders came through the Rhine region, those cities and massacred Jews. Can you convert or massacre you? They jump to the death.
Yeah, I know.
We're
I
not
read all about it.
converted. We're showing you something
Fun
more
thing to
important
do.
than life itself. That's the struggle in an extreme circumstance, serving as a model for those of us who do have to struggle, not on that level. My life is not at stake. But still, I inherit the power of the struggle over against. So God is the ultimate author. God knows how the story of humanity goes. But he wants to find a way to get people not to give up, not to leave the stage of history, but to continue. We don't give up. Fackenheim's notion of the 614th commandment. Typically, historically, there are only 613 commandments. That's totality. There is no such thing as a 614. But Fackenheim dared to propose a new one. Don't give Hitler a posthumous victory by converting from Christianity to Judaism. We have a responsibility to maintain. That's a new moment in the struggle. We're going to, there's only 650 commandments, but we need a 614. I'm sure God is saying, how great is that? That they took the struggle so seriously that they violated an absolute identity. It really is. It's so fascinating. Yep.
Of course, it was during the day, and when you pointed, I was boiling just if I pointed on different kind of food. Again, Klein able preference for hunting, for a food which didn't grow. Labor didn't place in it. It was hunting.
It was hunting.
Right, preference for hunting, because he was chosen for this food. Again, and you were right, I didn't understand it till today. So, it's preferred hunting. And this is a poem which is, and Jacob now dominates with with food which needs a lot of labor, so ladies mentioned.
Stew.
Do the stew. Have the blow it. So it's lots of technology in this boil.
And about different cultural norms.
This is one epoch is gone, another is dominating now. And I was talking to Vivian, maybe I'm wrong, but knowledge. Only Jacob is a person whose daily labor is detailed, described in the Torah. Am I right?
That Jacob is the only one who engages in daily labor.
And it described in Torah.
In Torah.
Right.
Okay.
Because his shepherding, his genetic, he's a very skillful breeder.
Yes, he is. That's true.
So, and only him, or I'm wrong.
Only he is a skillful breeder? Is that what you're wondering?
No. Only his job, daily job, agricultural job, is described in the Torah.
I thought you said he was a breeder.
Breeder, yes, and later when he serves labor.
Okay.
Remember goats with spots and one color, and he did it.
No, that's true. No
Only
doubt.
him, right? Am I right?
Now wait a minute, you're making 2 points. He grows, you're making the point about food, but you're also making the point about breeding.
Yes.
Food is agriculture.
Yes.
Are you saying Jacob is both? agricultural and a breeder?
Actually, breeding is part of agriculture.
Okay. You need agriculture. But what point are you making here? Different kinds of life?
Kinds of life. One is God with its preference for hunting. You didn't grow those animals you hunt. And Jacob is agricultural person. Actual Neolithic revolution is there. So people grow their food.
Yes, yes, yes.
And Jacob like manifesting now. Now he wins. Now style of life has changed. This is what I was thinking.
How has it changed? We don't eat everything?
Emphasis on lentil stew or soup. Lentil soup, right?
Oh,
This is
lentil
like-
soup, lentil
Yes,
soup, I see
yes.
what you mean. Not meat.
Not meat, but for us it's just a word. But how much labor you have to place to get this bowl of lentil soup?
And what point are you making by talking about the labor?
It's time for labor. Neolithic revolution is there. So now it's agriculture. And you cannot survive with your tribe just on hunting.
I think the Torah has a bias against agriculture in the sense of a sedentary life.
Cain, Abel. So,
That's true, but also Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, these are cities.
cities, but we are not talking about food there.
But we are talking about sedentary as opposed to nomadic.
Yes, okay. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. But why Torah is focusing on exact, and by the way, it's exact meal. It's a lentil soup.
And what's your answer to that? Growing and not hunting.
It's amount of labor, which is very appreciated at this moment.
More labor is required for growing.
Right. You shouldn't be with her. labor, farmers' labor, which is
So what? Why is labor an issue?
because time has changed.
Time has changed.
Yes, and God prefers this.
He prefers lentils to hunting.
Lentil
Growing
is
versus hunting.
yes.
But now that's
in
a
opposite of Cain Abel story. Now it's this.
I get it.
You
But
said time is changing.
I get it, but the problem here, to me,
Okay,
is
so
there is a bias, I think. I'm not saying all the way through the Bible, but there's a bias against sedentary with settling down. Because when you settle down, that's represented by agriculture, you then begin to get more complex societies, division of labor,
yes.
and you begin to feel self-sufficient. If you can do these things, we have a blacksmith, we have a farmer, pretty soon, we don't look up to God, we look to ourselves. So the city represents a tendency toward idolatry, self-worship. Cities block out the voice and the demands of God. Whereas if you're wandering, if you're nomadic, if you're non-urban, they're much more subjected to the elements, and therefore very much more. By the way, there's a passage in Deuteronomy that says that Israel is between two river civilizations, the Nile and the Tigris and the Euphrates, and the difference is that the denizens of river civilizations look down for their sustenance, whereas Israel, which has no water, looks up.
Oh, it's interesting.
So the more complex the civilization, the more idolatrous it may become. Because, well, if I'm self-sufficient, if I'm hungry, I can go down to the McDonald's and get something. That's all horizontal. But if I look to God, if I'm saying the Birkat HaMazon, I'm always looking up to God. The city, I think there's a polemic in the Bible against the city.
Yes, Sodom Gomorrah, yes. But in Yitzchak and Jacob's story, it's about, as you said, food preference.
About what?
Food preference.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's for sure.
And again, it's now we have agriculture industrialized, but in this time, no. But you have to look at the haven, and you have to think about rain. So, not really cities. Plus, Pharaoh and Abraham went from Ur, huge civilization, one of center of education of this time, by the way.
Well, sure, of course. But they left it.
Left,
They left a culturally rich society.
but took some. And in my opinion, the idea, education for everybody. Even women were writing in Sumer. They wrote poems, they were educated. And on a regular basis, not just priestess.
No, but also it's a sedentary, it's back to a horizontal society versus a vertical one. There's always verticality, there's always the gods. But the question is, can we free ourselves from the riskiness of depending on God? Yes, we can build a civilization, and we can, develop machines.
But in one day, earthquake, nothing. I was survival in Tashkent earthquake, 1966.
Oh my God,
It's like,
thank you, yes,
so I was
Well, that's God.
right. And
You-
I'm Olga. I think I forget.
You're what?
My name is Olga. O-L-G.
Oh, okay, Olga.
Yes, I forget.
I will forget, but you'll remind me.
Oh,
It
yes.
it takes me several times to remember a name.
I perfectly understand so
Yeah,
how many people.
Of course. I know a lot of people's names and a lot I don't, so thank you for
That's-
reminding me.
I will remind.
Yes, very good. I'll say yes, and you'll say it's Olga. And you can do that.
I'm also heretic because I very hesitate to tell what I'm thinking because
Oh,
it's,
not
it's
at
from
all. Don't hesitate. Any comment is fine here.
thank
We're
you.
wrestling with these issues.
And you were mentioned about Oracle. I went to Mount Parnasse where
Did you?
it was
Where the oracle was.
where Oracle was touched this stone which Pythia must hold. It was very interesting. Very hot. You're climbing on top of the mountain, and you know Hippocrene stream. Hippocrene. It's like drinking for your hydration, for your water,
Okay,
sacral water of Apollo.
okay.
You know Hippocrene?
I know the word, but I don't know what it means.
Oh, it is a water for
Health?
and health and being poetry, have muse coming.
Water?
Water, yes, it's
Poetry? What's the connection between water and poetry?
Where Pegasus, the wing, horse with wing, hit his hoof, it's spring started.
Oh, okay, all right.
In this place in Mount Parnasse, and it's still there. It's just a pipe now.
I see what you mean.
can drink this water. I didn't know this.
Is that one of the reasons why it's there, because of the water?
No, because
It's a mountaintop.
it's mountain, because it's a sanctuary of Apollo with his muse, oracle, whatever. It's a huge complex. So it was considered as a water you have to drink to write poetries, to get a connection with a muse to write it fantastically. So and health.
I didn't know how to drink it. It was very hard.
Oh, was it?
drinking
Was it?
I was drinking a lot, and then you have to drink 3 sips of water.
Oh,
I was drinking a lot. It didn't work.
it doesn't matter, that's fine.
And thank you so much for your lesson.
Yeah.
Tolerance.
For,
For me.
Olga,
Yes.
got it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
I'm trying to get another opinion, maybe we can get out of it. Shabbat shalom. How do we make so much out of nothing?
Well, that's God created the world out of nothing.
Oh, that's right.
We create meaning out of nothing.
I like the way we extrapolate these stories with absolutely no basis.
Yeah, but one of the things that happens, I just love the off-the-wall comment.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it goes somewhere and
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't. So the comment itself, we don't know when the comment is made, whether there's some substance there. It depends on whether this group, which is so creative, makes something
That's
of
what
it.
it is, you understand me. I know sometimes I really wonder about an off-the-wall idea that I get.
How do you
And-
make progress without daring
Right.
an idea?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
what
think there's
about
any,
it. Right.
there's any comment that we would resist out of bed.
Well, we have a good time.
And we also.
We do, everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a nice.
And we openly discover
Yeah.
the vitality
Right.
So I'm proud of Sheila. She said, after service, set for Monday. You know what I'm saying?
You got that off the list?
Hell no, she didn't care with her. Hell no. Fuck that. No, I'm gonna go